Live on the YouTubes. We are now live on YouTube, gentlemen. Whoa, what is that sound? Sounds like click, 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 click. Ooh.
You're sounding like you're behind a fan.
Yeah, my microphone is being really sensitive. And I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I don't know why it's sounding like really loud.
So for $100.
So I just turned it down.
32. Oh, sorry.
And
for $100, I can have 32 lights here.
We're going to. All right, tell who that son of a bitch in the background we're going to start this program. You can keep his 32 lights up his ass.
Okay, Mike has a message for you. We're starting our show, and you can. How was that again?
You can stick his 32 lights up his ass.
You can stick your 32 lights up your ass.
I can't understand a word you're saying, Mike.
What do you mean?
So should I turn my mic down? Is it too sensitive?
No, yours is fine. Chaz is having trouble hearing. Can you hear Robinson okay, Chaz?
Say something, Robinson.
Hello, Chaz. How are you?
I can hear Robinson a lot better.
That's weird.
Could be mine.
I hear both of you just fine.
Yeah, I wonder why you're having trouble hearing me, Chaz, because I hear myself fine. Robinson hears me fine. You're not hearing me fine, and I wonder why. That is rather strange, if you ask me. Hey, you know what's nice about not having to be on Radio Valencia? We're not required to do a 2-hour show anymore.
Yes. Hey.
Could be longer, could be shorter.
I'd be happy with doing an hour. I think an hour is plenty of time.
I don't disagree with you.
Actually, I do hear Robinson perfectly.
But you're just not hearing me very well.
I hear like a disruption, like a buzzy.
I mean, there is a sound. You're probably hearing the hum of the refrigerator behind me.
No, it's not a constant.
Wow, you're fucking. That shit's all fucked up.
Yep. Chaz, you're just like a choppy mess. I wonder if your Wi-Fi is having some issues. Do you have anything like streaming or downloading or anything right now, Chaz?
Am I?
You're a choppy mess. Do you have anything like streaming or downloading right now? I just turned off all sound in my room here. I hear no buzzing, no humming, no nothing. I feel like Chaz can't even hear me.
If you talk really quietly, like,
oh my God,
it's only when your voice goes like above certain.
Yeah,
sound.
But we're having trouble hearing you. We can hear like every other word you're saying. And it's not your microphone, it's your internet connection.
Check your internet connection, make sure you're on the right one.
Well, he's on his iPad, so he has to be on the right one, but
maybe reboot so you can get rid of all the other apps that are running.
No, it's an iPad, doesn't work that way, but your phone was doing the same thing, so I'm wondering if your internet's just being super slow right now. That's why I asked, do you have anything running on a computer, or that could be like downloading something or an update or porn? No?
No.
Okay.
Like the only thing that would do that is like download that would be Steam.
Yeah, I can't even understand what you're saying.
Can't understand a word you're saying, Chaz. And your image is very fuzzy and choppy as well.
Yeah, your internet is slow right now for some reason or another. Which one might have been why your iPad wasn't receiving the call. Do we want to? Do you have access to your modem, Chaz?
Modem's in the other room.
can you unplug it
Like,
to drop the Wi-Fi, unplug the modem, and then just let it sit for a minute and then replug it in? Because it may just be. Are you with Cox or CenturyLink?
Cox.
Yeah, they're a piece of shit right now. Unplug the modem and plug it back in, and it might resolve your problem. And we'll start, and then if you want to jump on once, hopefully it gets resolved.
Okay.
Why don't we? Do you guys want to try to see if we can squeeze the show into an hour tonight instead of 2?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put myself on mute.
Yeah, mute yourself. It's gonna disconnect you, but restart the router, and we'll just get the show going. Okie dokie. You ready, Mr. Robinson?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Bumper.
Okay, we are recording. We've been on YouTube for a little while. They get to always watch the technical difficulties. That's the best part, is us being fucking idiots
Every
Sure.
fucking show.
every week. It's amazing. And all right, so here's the bumper music. All right, 3, 2. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are coming to you live on YouTube.com, streaming all around the world via iTunes, on podcast, and live tweeting on Twitter if you'd like. We might even be checking our Facebooks this very moment. But it is the week of February the 27th, 2016. I am here with my good friend Robinson. Say hello, Robinson.
Hello, Robinson.
I do have Chaz. He is muted in the background because he's having some internet problems right now. We're trying to get those resolved, and he will join the program shortly. When he does, I'm sure he will have something exciting to share with the rest of us. So we are back live. And I'm home, as you may notice, in my mess of a studio with jerky machines and dog beds and all kinds of shit all shoved in here at the same time. But don't judge me. This was never meant to be a video show. This was always supposed to be a radio show where now I feel required to wear clothing. Whereas before, I could have gotten away with my wang hanging out and no one would have been the wiser except the neighbor outside that window. But he's kind of a perv anyway. We do have a programming announcement. And that programming announcement is bittersweet, if you will. For those that have been following the show for the last year or so, you know that about 5 or 6 episodes in to the Sober Happy Hour, we were fortunate enough to secure a spot on an independent radio station out of San Francisco, California, called Radio Valencia. Radio Valencia has been around for a few years out there. They are full-blown, like, underground pirate radio station. We don't know what kind of listenership there was. We don't know what kind of listenership there is, but last week's episode will have been our last episode on the Radio Valencia. And we appreciate Radio Valencia giving us the opportunity to broadcast on their network. And it was a mutual parting of ways. Radio Valencia is kind of going through some changes right now. And it just kind of got to a point where it didn't make sense for our listenership, which is mostly podcast and a little bit of YouTube, and very little live listeners from midnight to 2 a.m. were listening to the show. So it didn't make a lot of sense for some of the constraints that we felt we had in terms of advertising, FCC rules that kind of sort of applied, and then also the length of the show, because we had to keep the show to a strict 120 minutes in order to fill the time slot on Radio Valencia. This is going to give us some flexibility. This is going to give us some flexibility of dates and times and days of the week that we can do the show. So it will now exclusively be available via podcast and for this silly video stream on YouTube that is sort of the behind the scenes means of recording the show. So a heartfelt thank you to Radio Valencia and all the hosts over there, and the program director, and the people in charge, the people who weren't really in charge. And we thank you to all of the listeners and for the opportunity. It was a great opportunity, and we'll be forever grateful. We probably would not have the format that we have today. We probably would not have the, I struggle to call it radio professionalism, but they kind of held us to a higher standard, knowing that we were broadcasting live on the radio. And I think this show owes a lot to them. And I wanted to say thank you to Radio Valencia. Robinson?
Yes, that really was our only expense, I think, for doing the show, as far as having regular dues to pay. So, and I don't know, I guess you're right. I don't think it really was worth it in the long run. Of course, I'd like to get a hold of the program director and find out some of the statistics on our listenership.
Absolutely.
I mean, who knows? I mean, if it turns out that we actually have a fuck ton of listeners, then maybe we will change our minds. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, and maybe we renegotiate and see if we can get a better time slot as well, because I think the original idea was that the midnight to 2 a.m. slot would be a good slot for the type of topics that we would be talking about, right? People getting, done with their days, or maybe getting done with the bar. And I don't know. It was the idea. We did it for a year. We gave it a good, clean shot. And we're going to try something a little bit different. So let's see if we can get Chaz on the show here. He says his internet is back up, and I just sent him the invite, and we'll see if he can join. But at the end of the day, it was a business agreement, and we decided we were going to move on. And I'll tell you right now, Robinson, something that I am really hopeful for is if we can create a really good hour-long version of the show. And I'm not saying that that's what we're doing, so listeners, don't freak out. I did not say that we were going to switch formats to 1 hour. But if we can create a really good 1 hour version of the show, or an edited version of the show that we can get down to 1 hour, it may open up possibilities for us to entertain slots on other legitimate radio stations, as opposed to an independent radio station here in Phoenix or in Oakland or wherever anybody will have us. So from a syndication point of view, I think the show's been around long enough that we've definitely got a whole bunch of episodes under our belt. They know we're not going anywhere, and I think
I think you could probably edit a bunch of those down too.
I agree.
To some 1 hour shows and just keep them as backlog for future live show or future radio shows. We don't always have to be live on a syndicated show.
Right. But we were only live on Radio Valencia for the first few months, until we realized that having the energy to do a 2 hour long show in the middle of the night, especially when the time changes and it's 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. for us here, that was just difficult. It was difficult, and it was hard, especially hard when I had to work the next day at like 9 a.m. And so doing the YouTube, recording it, editing it, and making it available is definitely a whole lot better.
I like that we're live on YouTube, because we don't have to fill a time slot. We can do it whenever we want.
Yep. And that could be perhaps where the next push really goes. So rather than focusing on the Radio Valencia side of things, we can now focus a little bit of our effort and energy on the YouTube thing, try to build that viewership and, promote it. And
have we monetized YouTube yet?
YouTube, we are a YouTube partner. I announced that back a few months ago when we became a YouTube partner. And the thing about the YouTube is without promotion, it's hard for people to find the show. And because we've not promoted it, we really don't get a lot of viewers. I think realistically, part of that comes down to how long the show is. Because a 2-hour video,
Yeah.
that's a commitment. That's a movie, you know?
Yeah, that's
2
true.
hours of audio in your ears or in your car, people can do that. But sitting in front of a computer or an iPhone or a tablet or something with 2 hours of video playing where it's just three guys' heads in a screen, I think that's a tall order.
Right, but people can also just listen to it from their computer while they're doing other things. They don't have to look at us.
That's very true. And now with YouTube Red, they can, on a smartphone, if you're a subscriber to YouTube Red, you can minimize the YouTube without pausing the video and it'll just play the audio in the background. And I think that will also help for longer format shows that may be more audio centric like this one. So
Yes.
let's see. Chaz is still struggling to get on. How do you remember, Robinson, how the one time when we were having problems with getting you or somebody else on the show and it was saying that they were getting an error or they weren't allowed to join the call? Do you remember how we resolved that issue?
No, I don't.
Okay. Because that's what Chaz is currently experiencing. He's getting a unable to join the call error. Let us do just a wee bit of poking around here. We can hear that really loud, Robinson, just so you know. Is that us? Are we causing that? Because it's a group.
I have my
message.
volume off, but
Yeah, we can just hear the
vibration's
buzzing.
on.
I'm going
I'll
to text.
I'm just gonna put my phone
Chaz
on
himself.
the sofa instead of on the table.
Okay.
Then you won't hear it because you're actually not hearing the sound. You're just picking up the.
We're hearing the vibrator. I thought maybe you were masturbating, and then I realized it was just your phone.
What's the difference?
That's true. That's very true. Not allowed to join call. Let's see here. We're not allowed to join this video call. Product forums. How do I resolve? So what's fun about this show is we tend to get technical difficulties on a regular basis. And what's funny is we don't change anything.
I know. It's the internet itself that changes.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, I was doing some research on Vietnam for my project. Their average bandwidth or internet speed is 125 megabits.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very...
And they have... That's what?
Go ahead. That's very fast.
It is?
Yeah, 125 megabits? Absolutely. If that's the average speed, because here, I mean, you got to pay like $70 a month for my internet connection that's 50 megabits.
Oh, I think maybe I read it wrong, but because their internet is really, really slow.
Maybe kilobits.
Maybe kilobits, yeah.
128K.
That sounds more likely. They're, when someone tries to just, call me on the phone using an app, not using the phone, but using an app through the internet, I can barely hear them, and it's just really bad. But they also only have 33% penetration, which means
I hate when that happens.
which means they get about a third of what is actually out in the world on the internet. Everything is blocked. 67% of the internet is blocked.
Really?
Yeah, things like Netflix. There's no Western like entertainment available. I was asking some people if they've heard of things, bands like the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin. Nope. The Doors. Nope. The Who. Nope. Michael Jackson. Yeah, isn't he that white kind of black guy? But they all know who Beyonce is. I don't know why
Yeah.
because they love that like sad, sappy kind of music. Um,
Beyonce's not sad and sappy. What are you talking about?
well, it's
It's like
R&B. R&B
dance
is
pop now.
yeah, R&B is their the only thing that anybody listens to there, and it's
Wait, do
all
they play American music on the radio?
never
Really? Why not?
because they don't like it. I mean, I'm sure I've met a bunch of people who like Western music, but they have to go to YouTube and search it.
Really?
But it's just not readily available.
So, is there a Vietnamese pop community
Yes,
like there
absolutely.
is
It's just
in
like
like
just like the
Korea?
Korean pop. There's Viet pop, and there's a whole bunch of like cute boy bands and Vietnamese pop singers that are only known in Vietnam. They don't get outside of there. Nobody cares about them anywhere else in the world. So they're very isolated with their entertainment and their internet
Very interesting. I wonder
and
why
their
that is.
sex life.
Hmm. The listeners that we have in Vietnam, are they watching on YouTube mostly?
Yes.
And because knowing now that I have to submit English subtitles um, in order for them to show up, it's not this automatic thing
Yeah.
that a lot of people they tried for a little while to do the automatic subtitle thing in YouTube, but that I guess is not a thing anymore. And that would have been very cool because our show is in English. It would have been easy for it to populate the words. And I think for what you were saying for our Vietnamese viewers that just want to read the words in English at the same time that they're hearing them, that would have been very helpful.
Yes. So I know that it's not possible to do it live, but I think you can just put it somewhere on the archive so that it does it and it reads or it just listens to the conversation and puts it up, but it has more time to render that whole
Hmm.
thing. It's like using Google Voice on your phone. There's a delay, but it works. So
Interesting.
that's up to you. I don't know how to do that,
And neither do I.
but I'm sure it's possible. And I'm sure that would please a lot of our Vietnamese listeners.
Well, this is kind of screwed with Chaz. He is being blocked from joining the call. And this was the same thing that happened when we tried to get Ozzy on the first time. And I have no idea how.
It happened once with me too, and I realized later that I was logged into a different Gmail account, and that's why I couldn't get on.
Okay.
I have to be on my Robinson 211 Gmail account in order for this to work.
Well, and we've had to have you on before with your other account because this account wouldn't work either. I think there's a problem every once in a while where like shit gets somehow disconnected, and because of what we had to do to get him disconnected, maybe because his IP address changed when he turned off his internet. um there's
Oh,
there's so many variables, so
hmm.
I don't fucking know. So why don't we do this while we still fight to work Chaz into the mix? We can start the conversation.
Okay.
Perfect. So this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We are still attempting to stream live on YouTube. I will have to edit out some of the nonsense here that we're dealing with trying to get Chaz back on. And that's fine because I'm not going to have to stick to a 2-hour format. So even if it ends up being shorter than we anticipated, that'll be okay. And I love that. That's great. That's freedom, baby. We wanted to talk tonight about a particular topic that we've never, ever talked about before. And it's, I would say, I think it's fair to say that it's a provocative topic because there are people on both sides of the fence. And we talked a little bit, maybe a month or two ago, about, I think it was Portugal. I want to say it was Portugal. Oops, sorry, I think I muted myself for half a second there. Did away with all drug-related laws. That drugs are legal in Portugal. And
all drugs.
all
Everything.
drugs.
Okay.
Everything. And they found that it didn't do what the Western countries all assumed it would do. Just mayhem and people getting high on the streets and just chaos and anarchy. It because the drugs became legal, they weren't filling up their prisons with nonviolent drug offenders, and they were focused instead on, they spent the money instead of prison and prosecuting these people on treatment. And they've seen what was a serious heroin problem in Portugal drop considerably shortly after they legalized drugs. And Bill Maher talks about it all the time, that, and I think Ron Paul used to talk about it all the time too, that if they were to legalize heroin tomorrow, you know, all the people in the audience, raise your hand if heroin were legal tomorrow, raise your hand if you would go out and do heroin tomorrow. And of course, you know, nobody raised their hand because the people that want to do heroin are doing it regardless of the fact that it's illegal. And all we're doing is wasting a shit ton of money fighting against drug use and incarcerating people when they're still doing it anyway. And we've proven time and time again that the threat of incarceration, the threat of punishment is not much of a deterrent because people still break rules. If you make rules, people are going to break those rules. So if we know that the rules aren't working, then let's find another way.
Well, removing the taboo is the first step.
And how do you do that?
Well, that takes a long time. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, porn used to be the big taboo, and then the internet got a hold of it, and now it's just like everyday mundane day of life. And I don't think, it's become an average thing, and people aren't making a big deal out of it anymore.
This is interesting.
Same with tattoos.
I bet I'm going to be on the show.
What happened?
I think am I in 2 calls now? Hold on a second.
Okay.
This is weird. Because if I go to the main page, I can start the call again, which means he's probably trying to join the call. Remember when I shut mine down? Just for a second?
Yeah.
The call stayed active for you because it was a hangout that already existed.
Right.
And I'm wondering if we do this.
Yes, I sometimes will open Hangouts on a Wednesday and realize that our call is still active because I didn't shut it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It,
Interesting.
everybody has to close it in order for it to be completely shut down. If one person leaves it open, then it stays open.
Hmm. Interesting. It's telling me that he is a non-response.
Hmm.
Anyway, all right. More bullshit to edit out. The drug war.
Yes.
Everybody is familiar with the war on drugs, but not everybody is familiar with all of the bullshit that has come along with this war on drugs that started in the 1980s. And for all of the things that Ronald Reagan was involved in as a president, the war on drugs may have been one of the worst
Well, that was
because
the Nancy Reagan thing, wasn't it?
well she was so he really created the war on drugs itself, but she was sort of the face of it. You know how all first ladies kind of have their side project. You
Yes.
know, Michelle Obama has been about, you know, kids and fitness and keeping kids active. That was hers. Hers was the war on drugs.
Right.
And
Just do it, wasn't it?
uh I don't remember.
No, that was Nike.
Yeah, that was Nike. Just say no.
Just say no.
Just say no to drugs. And
Yeah.
then that's when like the DARE programs started and just all of the bullshit, because DARE was drug abuse resistance education, right? And
Right.
I'm going to be honest with you, I think it introduced a lot of people to drugs.
Yeah.
I don't
At a very young age.
right. And you, I don't think that DARE was around when you were in elementary school. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it was popular when I met you.
Yeah.
It was the fire departments that were basically running those programs.
And fire and police. And I remember I had a female police officer. She would come to the school like once a week and give a presentation and talk about things related to drugs and people getting in trouble for drugs. And it, not only was it not particularly interesting, and it was all about abstinence and trying to make you believe that doing drugs meant that you were a bad person and everything else. It did for some people, not really for me, but for some people, I would imagine that there was something very intriguing about this taboo, this forbidden fruit that you're not supposed to.
That's the taboo that I was talking about, and it's just one of those things where it's like, why is it so bad? I have to find out. And yeah, I wonder how much damage it caused. But yeah,
It's impossible to say how much damage it caused, but I do think that it is possible to determine how much money it has cost, how many unnecessary incarcerations there are. California right now is in the midst of trying to look at all of the nonviolent prisoners, people that got incarcerated for the 3 strikes law in California. They are looking at all of these 3 strikes offenders, and they are figuring out if it was for robbery, nonviolent, non-armed robbery, how much did they steal? And if it doesn't reach a certain dollar amount, they're going to release these people. For drug offenders, they're going to release nonviolent drug offenders because they've realized that it is costing billions and billions of dollars to keep these people behind bars. But here's the problem. If they release these people now, and let's say they've done more than a couple years in the state penitentiary, these are people that now won't be able to get normal jobs, more than likely. They've been hardened by this years-long stint in prison. They may now have a worse drug problem than they had when they were incarcerated. They haven't learned any skills. They've only learned coping skills when it comes to basically this, mob type environment, this oppressive, violent inmate society. And they come out of prison and they are not the same person that they were when they went in. So even though they want to release these people now, they don't want to release them because they think it's what's good for them. They want to release them because they want to save the money. But they've already done damage to these people that may be irreversible harm that's been done to these people that were locked up for nonviolent drug offenses that now may be more likely to be violent when they get let out and be like hardened criminals. And that, to me, is a very sad truth about the war on drugs and the destruction that it has caused. If you've ever known anyone that has been to prison for a length of time, and I'm not talking about county jail. I went to county jail for 30 days for a DUI. I'm talking about someone who went to straight up pound me in the ass prison. These people are going to kind of fall into three categories, right? The tough guy trying to make it, hooks up with a crowd of tough guys, and basically becomes part of a fucking gang. For those that couldn't understand the weird way that I just pronounced that word, gang, G-A-N-G, gang. And you don't just walk away from that mindset, that lifestyle, that way of living your life because they let you out of prison, which is why the re-incarceration rates in this country are so high, because they don't try to rehabilitate you in prison. They don't try, there's programs to get your GED and get your, get a certificate in this and learn how to do that, but they don't force people to do shit like that in prison. Those are optional things. And to be honest, I'm sure there are plenty of people that have, learned great stuff. And I've talked to some, prisoners who've gotten let out of prison or jail that are very well-spoken, well-read individuals because they had nothing but time.
There are a few who get their PhD and, get out of prison and start a career, but that's very few and far between.
Well, because we as a society, which is very similar to the way that we deal with drug addicts in recovery, there is a stigma, and for good reason. Don't get me wrong. Somebody that went to jail because they killed someone, I'm probably going to have a little bit of a tough time trusting them. Somebody that went to jail or to prison for robbing their employer, blind. They stole, $50,000 from their employer over the course of 2 years working there. Robbed them blind. Helped their friends break into the place after hours and steal a bunch of shit. Like, I'm probably not going to be very trusting that that person won't do it again. So I get that it's different, that a nonviolent drug addict who is in recovery is not the same as somebody who went to prison for something that they did and was in prison for a few years. I get that. But what I'm saying is the people that they are considering letting out of prison because we're currently maybe scratching the surface of the possibility that the war on drugs does not work, those people are going to get out of prison and they may not be contributing members of society. They may be problematic. They may have emotional issues. They may have psychological issues that were not addressed. I'm sorry, say that again.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome.
PTSD, for sure. I mean, shit. I'm 5'6" tall. I weigh 135 pounds. If I made the mistake of doing something terrible and I got thrown in prison, I will tell you right now, I would not have a pleasant time.
You would be someone's little bitch.
I would gladly be someone's bitch because they tell you when you go to prison, you got to do one of two things right away. You either kick someone's ass or become someone's bitch. Because if you don't do one of those two things, you're probably not going to survive real life state prison. And we see this glorification of prisons. We see these shows on TV like Orange is the New Black and Oz and these prison type shows, Prison Break. I could name a few. It's not always a real life view. And yes, there is violence. Yes, there is rape. Yes, there is corruption and drug use and all kinds of crazy fucked up stuff. But the reality is most prisons are 23-hour lockdown. I'd say a very real, and I've not been to prison, so I can't speak to this from experience, but when they talk about prison being college for criminals, I believe that to be true. That what movie was it? Blow. The movie Blow with Johnny Depp.
Yes.
He goes
Great
to
movie.
prison for marijuana trafficking. And the line that I love was, I went into prison with a master's degree in marijuana. And when I left prison, I had a PhD in cocaine. And left a small-time weed dealer, or went in a small-time weed dealer, came out a full-blown cocaine drug kingpin. And that's real shit. That's not phony baloney stuff. I mean, that movie was based on a true story.
Yeah.
I believe it to be true that happens in a lot of circumstances, and there are plenty of people that go to prison that want to come out and do good and do the right thing, but they don't get opportunity to do good and do the right thing. And if they're not being given the opportunity to get out and do good and do the right thing, then what are they going to revert back to?
What they learned in prison.
Crime.
Yeah.
So I want to try something because Chaz is getting frustrated, and so am I, that he can't get on the show because he really wanted to talk about this with us.
Yes, he was excited about it.
I'm going to close my window, which could fuck things up for a minute. Hopefully it
Okay.
just stops the broadcast and allows us to restart the broadcast. If
Okay.
it doesn't, then we may have to create a part 2, and that's okay too. So why don't you hang up?
All right.
And then I'm going to ring you both back.
We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Hopefully less.
Maybe less, yes.
All right. So you hang up and then I will hang up. Perfect. We'll be back.